reflector. The heavy rain battered the windshield as Claire drove down the lonely, winding road. Her wipers barely kept up with the downpour, making it hard to see the way ahead. The clock on the dashboard read 11:45 p.m. She was running late. Her friend Liz had called in a panic, needing a ride after her car broke down on the outskirts of town. Claire felt a pang of worry as she pulled off the main road onto a narrow, poorly lit street. Liz's location was deep within a secluded part of the area she wasn't familiar with. As she navigated the twists and turns, her cell phone buzzed. She glanced at it, hoping it was Liz giving her more precise directions. But the screen was blank. A sudden movement at the edge of her vision made her slam on the brakes. There, in the middle of the road, stood a figure drenched in rain, waving frantically. Claire's heart pounded as she rolled down the window just a crack. "Help me, please," the woman cried. She looked to be in her early 30s, her clothes soaked through. "My car broke down, and I've been walking for miles. Can you give me a ride?" Claire hesitated. It was late, and she was alone, but the woman's desperation was palpable, and Claire's instincts told her to help. "Okay, get in," she said, unlocking the door. The woman climbed in, shivering. "Thank you so much. My name's Emily." "Claire," she replied, turning the car back onto the road. "Where are you headed?" "Just drop me at the nearest gas station. I'll call for a tow from there," Emily said, her voice shaky. As they drove, Claire noticed Emily glancing nervously out the window. Her hands fidgeted and she kept looking at the dashboard clock. "Are you okay?" Claire asked, trying to sound reassuring. Emily took a deep breath. "I think someone was following me. I saw headlights in the distance for a while, but then they disappeared. I didn't want to stop and find out who it was." Claire's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The thought of someone stalking them in the darkness was chilling. She checked the rearview mirror, but all she could see was the rain-slicked road behind them. "Don't worry, we're almost there," Claire said, more to reassure herself than Emily. Suddenly, the car's engine sputtered and the vehicle lurched forward before dying completely. Claire cursed under her breath and tried the ignition again, but it was no use. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere. "Great," Claire muttered. "Just great." Emily's eyes widened with fear. "We need to get out of here. Now." Before Claire could respond, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter as they approached. Claire's heart raced. Was this the person Emily had been trying to escape? "Lock the doors," Emily whispered. Claire did as she was told, her hands trembling. The vehicle slowed as it neared them, stopping a few feet away. The driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out, his features obscured by a hooded raincoat. He walked toward them with measured, deliberate steps. "Stay in the car," Claire said, though she wasn't sure it was the right thing to do. Her eyes darted to the glove compartment where her pepper spray was stored. But before she could reach for it, the man was at her window, tapping on the glass. "Car trouble?" he asked, his voice muffled by the rain and his hood. Claire cracked the window slightly. "Yes, it just died. Can you help?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Pop the hood, and I'll take a look." Reluctantly, Claire pulled the lever. The man disappeared under the hood, and for a moment all they could hear was the rain. Then the engine roared back to life. Claire's relief was short-lived. The man didn't step away from the car. Instead, he moved to Emily's side, pulling her door open with surprising force. "Get out," he ordered. Emily screamed, struggling against the man's grip. Claire fumbled for the pepper spray, finally grabbing it and spraying it directly into the man's face. He roared in pain, releasing Emily and stumbling back. "Run!" Claire shouted, pushing Emily out the door on her side. They bolted into the woods, the branches scratching their arms and faces. Claire could hear the man's furious shouts behind them, but she didn't dare look back. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs felt like lead. Finally, they collapsed behind a large tree, gasping for breath. "What do we do now?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Claire peered through the darkness, trying to get her bearings. "We need to find a road, any road, and flag down help." They moved cautiously through the woods, every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs setting their nerves on edge. After what felt like hours, they emerged onto another road. Claire spotted a pair of headlights in the distance and waved her arms frantically. The car slowed, an older couple inside rolled down the window. "What happened?" the man asked, concern in his eyes. We were attacked, Claire said, her voice shaking. Please, can you take us to the police? As they climbed into the back seat, Claire couldn't shake the feeling of dread that still hung over them. But for now, they were safe. She glanced at Emily, who gave her a weak but grateful smile. The drive to the police station was quiet, but Claire's mind raced. She couldn't stop thinking about the man who had attacked them. His face, twisted in anger and pain, haunted her thoughts. They would have to identify him, and she hoped the police would catch him soon. As they pulled into the station's parking lot, Claire felt a sense of relief wash over her. They were safe. But as she stepped out of the car, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder, half expecting to see the man emerging from the darkness once more. The night was far from over, and the memory of his cold, calculating eyes would stay with her for a long time. Sat in the dimly lit interrogation room at the police station, their nerves still raw. An officer brought them each a cup of hot coffee, its warmth a small comfort after the night's terrifying ordeal. Detective Harris, a stern-looking man with a no-nonsense demeanor, entered the room and took a seat across from them. "Can you describe the man who attacked you?" he asked, his voice steady. Claire recounted every detail she could remember: the raincoat, the hood, the predatory glint in his eyes. Emily nodded along, adding bits and pieces as they went. Harris took diligent notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "We'll do everything we can to catch this guy," he assured them, though his tone was more procedural than comforting. "For now, we'll have an officer take you both home. We'll be in touch." As they left the station, Claire's phone buzzed. It was a message from Liz. "Where are you? I'm still waiting for you to pick me up." Claire's heart sank. In the chaos, she had forgotten all about Liz. "Emily, I need to get my friend," Claire said, showing her the message. "She's stranded out there." Emily's eyes widened. "Claire, it's not safe. What if he's still out there?" "I can't leave her alone," Claire insisted. "We'll take the police with us." After some convincing, Detective Harris agreed to escort them. 2 squad cars led the way as they navigated back to the spot where Liz's car had broken down. The rain had eased to a light drizzle, but the night was still eerily quiet. As they approached, Claire's headlights caught the outline of Liz's car. It was empty. Panic set in as she and Emily jumped out, calling Liz's name. The officers spread out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Liz!" Claire shouted, her voice breaking. "Where are you?" A faint cry for help echoed from the woods. Claire's heart pounded as she ran toward the sound, officers close behind. They found Liz tied to a tree, bruised but conscious. "He took me," Liz gasped, tears streaming down her face. "He said he'd come back for me." The officers quickly untied her, and they all hurried back to the safety of the patrol cars. Liz clung to Claire, shaking with fear. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. "We're safe now," Claire said, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. Back at the station, Liz recounted her harrowing experience. She had been waiting by her car when the man appeared out of nowhere. He overpowered her and dragged her into the woods, binding her to the tree and leaving her with a chilling promise that he would return. Detective Harris's face grew graver with every word. "This man is escalating," he said. "We need to find him before he strikes again." Claire, Emily, and Liz were taken to a safe house, guarded around the clock. The days that followed were a blur of police interviews and sleepless nights. The fear of the man finding them again loomed over everything. One night, as they sat in the living room, Emily noticed a shadow pass by the window. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Claire's blood ran cold. She glanced at the door, checking the locks. They were secure, but the shadow had unnerved her. She reached for the phone to call the guard outside, but before she could dial, the lights went out, plunging them into darkness. "Stay close," Claire whispered, grabbing Liz and Emily's hands. The sound of footsteps approached the door, slow and deliberate. Claire's heart pounded in her ears as she fumbled for a weapon, anything she could use to protect them. She found a heavy lamp and held it up, ready to strike. The door burst open, and a beam of a flashlight blinded them. "Police!" a voice shouted. "It's Detective Harris." Claire lowered the lamp, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "What happened to the power?" Harris looked grim. "We think he's here. We're searching the perimeter now." The hours crawled by as the police scoured the area. They found signs of forced entry at the back gate, but no sign of the man himself. The tension was suffocating, and Claire's nerves were frayed to the breaking point. Finally, as dawn broke, Harris approached them. "We didn't find him, but we'll be increasing patrols and security measures." The days turned into weeks, and though the immediate threat seemed to recede, the fear never left. Claire, Emily, and Liz tried to return to their normal lives, but the shadow of that night lingered. They attended counseling, trying to piece together their shattered sense of security. One evening, Claire received a call from Detective Harris. "We've caught him," he said, relief evident in his voice. "He tried to abduct another woman, but she managed to escape and lead us to him. He's in custody now." Claire felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she knew the scars of that night would never fully heal. She, Emily, and Liz had survived a nightmare, and while the collector was behind bars, the memory of his cold, calculating eyes would haunt them forever. But as Claire hung up the phone and looked at her friends, she realized they had something stronger than fear. They had each other, and together they could face whatever came next.